Hey everybody, it's your girl Nell, and welcome to another episode of Simply Nell's Tiny Studio. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being a subscriber, and thank you so much to my Tiny Studio Lounge members. If you would like to become a sustainable member of Simply Nell's Tiny Studio, please do not hesitate to do so. The information will be linked in the description box below. So happy new year to you. Yesterday was the spring equinox. Yay! So that means this is a new year for me and those who believe in that sort of thing. And I'll be talking more about that in another video. But this video is about how the Trump administration are making attempts to erase Black America from history. Yes. Right now, 45, now 47, 34-time convicted felon Donald J. Trump and his minions in Washington are doing their darndest to erase Black America from the lexicon of American history. Yes. Recently, that drunk Pete Hegseth is up there in the Department of Defense, a job that he is thoroughly unqualified for. Okay, let's make that known. A job he has no business being in. Okay. Right now, that Department of Defense is scrubbing the history, the legacy, and the contributions of Black Americans across the board. If you go onto their website right now, the Department of Defense's website, if you go on there right now, there are certain historical figures in American history who happen to be from Black America who have been scraped from the website, such as the different maps and legacies that lets us know where the heroes of Black history are laid at or are laying right now in Arlington Cemetery. First, you had Medgar Evers. He's been his legacy and everything that was listed about him on the Department of Defense's website has been removed. Along with it, all kinds of African Americans, women, Latinos, Native Americans who have contributed in some kind of way to what it is that we call America today, and also contributed in various wars throughout our history. Their legacies have been scraped away from the official Department of Defense's website. Now, recently there has been some backlash about the Department of Defense removing information about Jackie Robinson, who was an American hero. And as you know, he was also a baseball hero, number 42, Major League Baseball player. And what he did was he was actually the first African American to integrate Major League Baseball. So his legacy, all right, and not only that, he also served his country. So his contributions were scraped from the Department of Defense's website until recently, the backlash that occurred, and so now his legacy is back. But Medgar Evers is not there. And a lot of African Americans who contributed and also gave their lives in defense of this country, their legacies and histories have been scraped, erased from the Department of Defense's website, the archives. And you know what is really heartbreaking about all of this is that people are thinking that DEI was such a bad thing. That DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, was meant that people of color and people who are of African descent that they were being given jobs and roles in certain areas of government and in just certain areas of the country, period, based on the fact that they were just Black or Latino or Native American or of Chinese descent or of Indian descent. So people were saying, and this is a false narrative, that if you are a person of color or a minority, you were receiving jobs based on the fact that you're a minority. And that's not the case. Anybody, everybody knows that if you are trying to get a job out here today, seek some type of employment either in the private sector or in the federal sector of the employment world, okay, if you are Black, you have to be 10 times as better or overqualified to just meet the requirements to get gainful employment. All right, we all know that. That's been a proven fact because this country was built on white supremacy. All right, America is one of the truest bastions of white supremacy. Any other place that you find a form of white supremacy being practiced, they studied how white supremacy runs in this country. They study the history of it. They study the laws regarding white supremacy and segregation, the American laws. And so you have places like Germany, South Africa. They studied what was happening over here and then took it to other levels in their own home countries. Okay, that's why I say America is the true bastion of white supremacy. And now we're living in a time period, an era where the contributions of African Americans are being scraped, and we as a people are being set back about 100 years or so. I say 100 years because my grandfather was born in 1925, and in February he would have turned 100 years of age. So just think of what it was like for my grandfather in 1925, growing up in the South, growing up in Mississippi in the 1920s and 1930s. Just think of what that is, what that was like. I think about my grandmother, who was 93, okay, and she was born, I believe, in 1931, all right, in Georgia. I just think about the stories that she and my grandfather told me about what it was like to live in an America where being Black was not cool. I think about that a lot. And I do understand, being that I was born in the late 60s, that a lot of benefits and things that I have taken for granted, being a Generation Xer, my grandparents did not have those same opportunities. They were not able to get on the bus and not consider where to sit. Okay, my grandparents had to worry about that. They had to constantly be aware that they were Black and they were marginalized. Okay, I never really thought about those things until I was faced with blatant racism. And when I was faced with blatant racism, then I had to acknowledge the fact, oh yeah, that's right, I'm Black. I'm not just a intelligent, educated woman. I am an intelligent, educated Black woman. And so I am, of course, marginalized on 2 counts of being Black and being a woman. So what America is doing is systematically erasing or attempting to erase Black legacies, Black history. But you know what? It cannot be done. It cannot be done because the ancestors that we come from helped to build this country. And this country would not have flourished at the rate that it did had it not been off the backs of the enslaved. Because you have to remember why Africans were kidnapped and brought on ships to this country and to the islands and territories of this country. You have to remember why. And the reason is because we had the innovation, we had the initiative, we were inventive, we were creative. We had built civilizations all across the globe. And so these diabolical white people went over into Africa and bamboozled African chiefs into turning over African bodies. And they took the brightest, the best, the strongest of the African West Coast to America to help build it. So while we built it, then the prophets came. And then white America decided that, hey, guess what? We're making all this money. We don't need to be giving a dime back to the crown. And so they rebelled. And they came up with a foundation that would be conducive to not only the continuity and the generational sustainability of wealth, but they also ensured that anyone and everyone outside of European descent could have no part in what they were calling the American dream. So the American Revolution, which took place, that was supposed to be about declaring independence and declaring freedoms. It was all about the freedom and the prosperity of wealthy white peoples. And it is only because of the efforts of the enslaved, the formerly enslaved, and the descendants of the enslaved. It is only by and through their efforts that we get amendments to the Constitution. 13, 14, and 15. It is by their efforts that we get civil rights legislations, equal opportunity acts. It is by those efforts that we see a change in the laws of Jim Crow. It is through the efforts of the enslaved, the formerly enslaved, and the descendants of the enslaved. It is by their efforts that other cultures were able to come to America and so-called live the American dream, or at least attempt to live the American dream. And so for 45, now 47, 34-time convicted felon Donald Trump to attempt to erase us from history, his efforts to set Black America back by almost 100 years. On the surface, it may seem as if the plot is working. But what Donald Trump and his minions do not know, and also the rest of the people of America who voted for him, what they don't know and have yet to realize, but will fuck around and find out, is the fact that the ancestors, African ancestors, our ancestors, my ancestors don't play. And there is no way you're going to erase us from the history of this country. There's no way you're going to be able to whitewash the blood that you spilt, white America. There's no way that you're going to be able to sit back and sign away through executive orders the legacies of Black Americans. You're not going to be able to do that because our ancestors won't allow it. You may be able to think that you can take it out of a book. You can rewrite and wash over the history of Black Americans, or simply not even teach it or acknowledge it. You can take our pictures down. You can hang curtains over our pictures. You can burn our books or books that feature our histories in it. But guess what? You'll never be able to erase it because we're not an erasable people. Our legacy doesn't begin and end in America. Our legacy is global. Everything that you do, white America, is because of us, the peoples of African descent, and people of not just peoples of African descent, but the African itself. Everything in this country is set up by the African. Now, you may want to debate that, and you can try. You can try to debate that, and I want you to, but I will definitely refute it in every way. Even the money that you use to trade with has African symbolism on it. The monuments that you have raised in Washington, D.C., the seat of governmental power, you have African symbolism in the middle of it. Some of the greatest things that you enjoy in this country was created and invented and patented by someone of African descent. Every time you pull up to a stoplight, you're pulling up to Black history. Every time you make your child or your grandchild a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, you are pulling up to or whipping out a jar of Black history. Every time you go to their cancer treatment centers to get chemotherapy or radiation, you're pulling up to Black history and Black ingenuity and innovation. Every time you pull out your cell phone to call someone or to text or scroll on social media, you're scrolling Black history. Every time you put on a album, you put on Foreigner, or you put on or you listen to the Chili Peppers, okay, or you enjoy Madonna, or you get into Cream or the Rolling Stones. Every time you listen to those musicians and bands on Spotify, you're pulling up Black history. Every time you listen to Carrie Underwood, Kenny Rogers, Dolly Parton, Jelly Roll. You're pulling up Black history. You can't erase us. And do you think that we are going to just stand by and allow you to erase us like this? Yes, we are, because we know that we cannot be erased. So ban those books. Stop teaching um, uh, honors African American history. Erase Black History Month from Google. Take Obama's picture or portrait off of the wall in the White House. Go ahead. We don't care. Because we've been here before. And we survived it all before. And you know what? We're not a minority. We're the global majority. And since we're the global majority, we are unraceable. So thank you for hanging out with me here in the tiny studio today. That was my message of the week. That was my message of the week. Okay? Because what I'm feeling right now is what everyone else is feeling, basically. You know, you can't erase us. We're unraceable. Thank you so much for hanging out with me here in the tiny studio. And as I said before, please do not forget to like and subscribe to Simply Nails Tiny Studio channel, and also consider becoming a sustainable member. And when you're a sustainable member, what happens is that you are privy to information and discussions and get ready with me's and behind the scenes in a tiny studio all the time in the Tiny Studio Members Only Lounge. So consider becoming a sustainable member. I'm your girl Nell, and I'll see you next time here on the channel. Bye-bye.